I turned 18 the day they chose her hem over my candles. The morning began the way I'd imagined it for months. Sunlight pooling on the kitchen counter where I'd set out 3 plates, cloth napkins folded the way Mother taught me when I still believed such details mattered. I'd woken early to make blueberry pancakes, the ones Father used to request every Sunday before Jade came along and declared them too heavy, too common. The batter sat ready in a ceramic bowl, small bubbles forming at the surface like promises waiting to break. "Good morning," I said when Mother descended the stairs, already dressed, already checking her phone. She glanced up briefly. "Oh, Amelia, I forgot you'd be up." Not happy birthday. Not even I forgot what day it was. Just surprised that I existed in the space I'd always occupied. "I made breakfast," I offered, gesturing toward the counter. "That's nice, sweetheart, but we have to leave soon. Jade's fitting is at 9, and you know how the boutique gets with walk-ins." She poured coffee into a travel mug, the sound sharp and final. "The seamstress says the beading on the bodice needs to be completely redone. It's a disaster." The dress. Of course. Jade's graduation gala dress, a silk monstrosity in champagne that cost more than my entire year's clothing budget. She'd spent weeks selecting it, rejecting a dozen others, demanding this specific designer, this specific shade. And now, 2 weeks before her event, the dress required emergency alterations that somehow consumed everyone's calendar like a black hole swallowing light. "It's my birthday," I said quietly. Mother's hand paused on the mug handle. "I know, darling. We'll celebrate tonight. I promise." The same promise she'd made last year when Jade's scholarship interview ran late. The same promise from the year before when Jade's art show opening couldn't be missed. Promises that dissolved like sugar in rain, leaving only the faint residue of disappointment. Father appeared next, already on a work call, his voice carrying the authoritative tone he reserved for important clients. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head without breaking stride, his attention fixed on whatever crisis demanded resolution at 7 in the morning. The gesture felt mechanical, a habit from years past when I was younger and he was present. "We'll be back by 3, Mother continued, gathering her purse and keys. 4 at the latest. We'll order your favourite dinner, that Thai place you love. And I picked up a cake yesterday, chocolate with raspberry, the one from Delacroix." I wanted to tell her that I'd stopped loving Thai food 2 years ago, that I'd mentioned at least 6 times this month that I preferred vanilla cake now, that Delacroix had closed last spring. But the words felt pointless, like shouting into a canyon and expecting the echo to care. "What about the pancakes?" I asked instead. "Save them for later, honey. We really can't be late." She kissed my cheek, her perfume too strong, too floral. Jade's already stressed about the fitting. Jade descended then, 17 and luminous in the effortless way that required tremendous effort from everyone around her. Her hair fell in perfect waves. She'd spent an hour on them last night while I studied for my calculus final. She wore white linen, crisp and expensive, the kind of fabric that whispered, "Handle with care." "Is the car ready?" She asked no one in particular, the question rhetorical because the car was always ready for Jade. "Happy birthday, Amelia," she added, the words automatic, her eyes already moving past me toward the door. "Sorry we have to do this today. The boutique made a mistake with the measurements." Not, "I'm sorry." The boutique was sorry. The universe was sorry. Never her. They left in a cascade of voices and movement, the front door closing with a soft click that echoed in the sudden silence. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by breakfast no one would eat, 18 years old and invisible. I cleaned up slowly, mechanically. The pancake batter went into the refrigerator. The plates returned to their cabinet. The napkins I'd folded with such care went back into their drawer, the creases already softening. By the time I finished, the kitchen looked exactly as it had before I tried to make the morning matter. My phone stayed silent, no messages from friends. I'd stopped maintaining those relationships, somewhere between sophomore and junior year, worn down by always being the one who cancelled, who couldn't make it, who had family obligations. The isolation had crept in gradually, until one day I realised I'd become the girl no one bothered inviting anymore. I spent the day in my room reading a novel I'd been saving for when I had time, really immersing myself in the pages. The protagonist was a woman who'd walked away from everything familiar to start over. I envied her that freedom, that clean break. In my life, there was nowhere to walk away to. 3 o'clock came and went, then 4, then 5. At 6:30, my phone finally rang. Mother's voice came through, bright and apologetic. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. The fitting turned into a complete ordeal. They had to order new beading from New York, and then Jade was upset, so we took her to that restaurant she loves to calm her down. We're still there now. We'll be home by 8, I promise. 9 at the latest." In the background, I heard laughter. Jade's voice saying something I couldn't make out. Father's responding chuckle. They sounded happy, complete, a family unit that functioned perfectly well without its missing piece. "Okay," I said. "You're not upset, are you?" Mother asked, but she was already distracted, her attention divided. "We'll make it up to you, I promise." "I'm fine." That's my girl, so understanding. "Love you, darling." The call ended before I could respond. I ordered my own dinner that night, pizza from the place on 5th Street, nothing special. I ate it alone at the kitchen table, no candles, no song. The chocolate raspberry cake from Delacroix that didn't exist sat in my mother's imagination, as substantial as their promises. When I finally went upstairs at 10, the house was still empty. They came home past midnight. I heard them moving through the downstairs, their voices tired, discussing tomorrow's schedule. No one came to my room. No one remembered. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, and felt something inside me grow very quiet and very still. Not anger. Anger required energy I no longer possessed. Not even sadness. Just a profound, aching certainty that I had become a footnote in my own life, a supporting character in Jade's story. This was my birthday, the day I was born, the day I first drew breath and became a person in the world. And it had mattered so little that a dress hem took priority. I thought about the woman in the novel, the one who walked away. I wondered what it felt like to matter enough to yourself that other people's neglect couldn't touch you. I wondered if I'd ever learn that kind of strength, or if I'd spend the rest of my life making pancakes no one would eat. The thought followed me into sleep, heavy and cold. Something was wrong with my breathing. The air felt thin, insufficient. I opened my eyes in darkness and couldn't remember closing them. My chest ached, not the metaphorical ache of disappointment, but something physical, something crushing. I tried to sit up and couldn't. My limbs felt distant, unresponsive. The ceiling above me looked strange, the shadows falling at wrong angles. When had I come downstairs? I couldn't remember moving. The bottle was there, orange plastic on the bathroom counter. My father's sleeping pills. Had I taken them? The memory felt slippery, dreamlike. 1, 2, enough? I hadn't meant to. Or maybe I had. The line between accident and intention blurred in the fog spreading through my thoughts. I just wanted to sleep, to stop feeling the weight of being forgotten, to rest without dreaming about birthday mornings that might have been different. This wasn't dramatic. There was no music swelling, no sudden revelation. Just my breath growing shallower, my heartbeat slowing to something almost peaceful. The pain of the day, the year, the lifetime of being second, began to fade into something softer. I thought of Mother's promises evaporating like morning mist. Father's distracted kiss on my head. Jade's perfect indifference. The Thai restaurant I no longer liked. The cake that didn't exist. The pancakes going cold on the counter. I thought, they won't even notice until tomorrow. And then, maybe that's all right. The darkness wasn't frightening. It felt like relief, like finally setting down a burden I'd carried so long, I'd forgotten I could let go. My last coherent thought was quiet, almost curious. Is this how you stop mattering? By accepting that you never did? Then nothing. Then light. I woke gasping, my lungs expanding violently as if I'd been underwater. My heart pounded against my ribs, too fast, too hard. I was in my bed, tangled in sheets damp with sweat. Morning light streamed through my window, the same soft gold I'd seen yesterday. No, not yesterday. The calendar on my wall read April 23rd, my 18th birthday. I sat up slowly, my mind struggling to reconcile the impossible. I remembered the pills, the fading, the end. I remembered it with the clarity of lived experience, not dream. But here I was, breathing, alive, returned to the morning before everything went wrong. Rebirth. The word felt absurd, impossible, yet I couldn't deny the evidence of my own existence. I'd died in that darkness, and somehow I'd been given back this day, this chance. I touched my face, my arms, confirming solidity. My phone on the nightstand showed 6:47 a.m. In 30 minutes, I would have gone downstairs to make pancakes. In 43 minutes, Mother would descend the stairs and forget to say happy birthday. In an hour, they would leave for Jade's fitting, and I would spend the day alone. But I didn't have to. That was the staggering realization that settled over me like a weight, lifting rather than descending. I didn't have to perform the same script. I could make different choices. I could save myself. I rose from bed with purpose I hadn't felt in years. The house was silent, everyone still sleeping. I dressed carefully, jeans and a soft sweater, comfortable clothes for a day that would be entirely mine. I took my time, no rushing, no anxiety about what they needed from me. Downstairs, I looked at the kitchen counter where I'd planned to stage my small celebration. The ceramic bowl sat clean in the cabinet. The blueberry pancakes existed only as potential. I left them that way. Instead, I made myself coffee, simple and black, and sat at the counter watching the morning unfold beyond the window. Birds moved between trees. The neighbour's cat stretched on their porch railing. The world continued, indifferent to human drama, and for the first time in years, I found that indifference comforting. When Mother came down at 7:30, I was ready. "Good morning," she said, reaching for the coffee pot. "Good morning," I replied evenly. She paused, glancing at the empty counter. "No breakfast?" "No." "Oh." She poured her coffee and I waited for her to remember, to acknowledge the date. The silence stretched. Finally, "Jade's fitting is at 9. We should leave soon." "Have a good time," I said. She blinked. "You're not coming?" "No." "But..." She seemed genuinely confused, as if my presence at Jade's dress fitting was somehow expected, required. "I thought you'd want to be there." Why would I want to be there? The question hung between us, unanswerable because the honest response, "I don't," and "I never did," would crack open conversations we'd spent years avoiding. "Well, it's family," she said weakly. "It's Jade's fitting. I have other plans." "What plans?" "My plans." Father appeared then, already on his phone, already distracted. He nodded at me absently. Mother looked between us, clearly uncertain how to navigate this unexpected resistance. "We'll be back by 3, she said finally, the same line from the previous timeline. "We'll celebrate your birthday then." "Don't worry about it," I said calmly. "I'm celebrating on my own this year." "Amelia." "It's fine, Mother, really. Go help Jade with her dress. I hope the fitting goes well." The words were polite, warm even, but something in my tone must have communicated finality because she didn't push further. When Jade came down and they all left in their familiar cascade of voices and movement, I felt no disappointment, only relief. I spent my 18th birthday exactly as I wanted. I drove to the art museum downtown and wandered through galleries I'd never had time to explore properly. I sat in the sculpture garden eating expensive gelato, reading my novel in the spring sunshine. I bought myself a small pendant at the museum store, a silver crescent moon that caught the light. At lunch, I tried a new restaurant I'd been curious about, ordering whatever sounded good without considering price or anyone else's preferences. The food was excellent. I ate slowly, savouring each bite, watching people pass on the street outside. No one called, no one texted. They were consumed with beading and hemlines and jade stress just as they had been in the first timeline. But this time, their absence didn't hollow me out. I'd already grieved what they couldn't give. Now I was discovering what I could give myself. In the late afternoon, I visited a bookstore and spent an hour browsing poetry. I bought 3 collections by authors I'd never heard of, drawn to their names and cover art and the way random passages resonated when I flipped through pages. At the counter, the cashier wished me a happy birthday. I'd mentioned it when she asked about my day, and the simple kindness from a stranger felt more substantial than years of my family's distracted affection. I came home at sunset to an empty house. They were still out. The fitting had surely led to dinner, to extended conversations about Jade's gala, to everything except remembering me. I didn't wait up. I lit a candle I'd bought at the bookstore, ran a bath, and soaked in silence with my new poetry book stacked on the bathroom counter. When they finally returned after 10, I was already in bed, reading by lamplight. I heard Mother's voice in the hallway. "Is Amelia home? Did she seem upset?" Father's response was muffled but dismissive. Jade said something about me being weird lately. Their footsteps faded toward their rooms. No one knocked on my door. No one came to apologize or explain or even acknowledge the day. And lying there in my quiet room, surrounded by my own choices and my own peace, I realized I didn't need them to. The next morning, I woke to find Mother in the kitchen, guilt written across her features like a language I'd learned to read too well. "We forgot," she said simply. "Your birthday, we completely forgot." I poured myself coffee, taking my time before responding. "I know. I don't know what to say. We got so caught up in Jade's fitting, and then dinner ran late, and..." She stopped, perhaps realizing that every explanation was also an excuse. "We're terrible parents." "You're not terrible," I said and meant it. "You're just focused elsewhere." "That's not fair to you." "No," I agreed. "It's not. But I'm handling it." She reached for me then, her hand on my arm, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Let us make it up to you, please. We'll plan something special, just the 4 of us. Whatever you want." I could have said yes. Could have let them perform their guilt through gestures and gifts, pretending it would fill the years of accumulated absence. But I'd learned something in that moment of death and rebirth. You can't repair what was never built properly to begin with. "I appreciate the offer," I said gently. "But I'm good, Mother. Really. Amelia, I celebrated yesterday. I had a wonderful day. It's done." The hurt on her face was genuine, but so was my boundary. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to survive her. The months that followed established a new pattern. When Jade needed an audience for rehearsals, I had study groups. When Mother asked me to help with family dinners, I had a shift at the library where I'd started working. When Father suggested I might want to attend Jade's gala after all, I had tickets to a concert with a girl from my English class. A friendship I'd actually cultivated this time, built on mutual interest rather than obligation. They noticed the change but couldn't articulate what was different. I wasn't angry or cold. I smiled at breakfast. I asked polite questions about their days. I simply stopped arranging my life around their priorities. "You've become distant," Mother said once, her tone hurt. "I've become busy," I corrected gently. "With what?" "My own life." She didn't know how to respond to that. What could she say? That I shouldn't have my own life? That I should continue making myself small so Jade could be large? Jade noticed too, in her way. One evening, she appeared in my doorway while I was studying, her expression uncertain. "Can we talk?" she asked. I set down my pen. "Sure." She perched on the edge of my bed, picking at a thread on my comforter. "You're different lately. Everyone's noticed." "Different how?" "I don't know. Just less available, I guess. Less willing to drop everything." She looked up, genuinely confused. "Did something happen? Are you mad at me?" I considered how to answer. The truth was complicated. I wasn't mad exactly, but I also wasn't willing to keep participating in the dynamic that had defined our relationship. She was the sun. I'd been expected to orbit. Now I'd found my own axis. "I'm not mad," I said finally. "I'm just prioritizing differently." "Prioritizing what?" "Myself." She blinked, processing this. "That sounds kind of selfish." "Maybe," I acknowledged, but the alternative was making myself disappear, so I'll take selfish. "I never asked you to disappear." "No, but you never noticed when I did." The words landed between us. Not cruel, but honest. Jade looked away, her fingers still worrying that thread. "I guess I didn't," she said quietly. "I guess I just thought, I don't know what I thought, that you were fine with everything?" "I wasn't fine. I'm not fine, but I'm learning to be okay anyway." She left shortly after, and I returned to my studying. The conversation hadn't resolved anything. You can't fix 18 years in one exchange, but it had established something important. I would no longer pretend for the sake of keeping peace. My 19th birthday approached in the second year of my rebirth. This time, I planned it openly, booking a weekend trip to a coastal town I'd always wanted to visit. When I mentioned it at dinner, the announcement landed like a stone in still water. "By yourself?" Mother asked, bewildered. "Yes, but we always celebrate as a family." I looked at her across the table. This woman who'd carried me, raised me, loved me in her way. "No," I said quietly. "We don't." The truth sat between us, unavoidable now. Father looked uncomfortable. Jade studied her plate. Mother's eyes welled with tears she didn't understand, guilt and confusion mixing into something neither of us could fix through conversation. "I don't understand when you became so selfish," she said finally, the words landing like she thought they would wound. "Selfish," I repeated, tasting the accusation. Then, calmly, "Maybe, but I'd rather be selfish than invisible." Father cleared his throat. "That's not fair, Amelia. We've never made you invisible." "Haven't you?" I kept my voice level, factual. "How many of my birthdays have you actually been present for? Not physically present, I mean actually there, focused on me, making it about me." Silence. That's what I thought. I stood, gathering my plate. "I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm stating facts. And the fact is, I've decided to stop waiting for you to see me. I'll just see myself instead." I left for my trip the morning of my birthday. I drove north along the coast, windows down, music playing, the whole day stretching ahead like an open road. I checked into a small inn, walked on the beach, ate fresh seafood while watching the sunset paint the sky in colours that existed nowhere else. That night, alone in my room with the sound of waves beyond the window, I felt something I'd been chasing since the day I woke up in my 18-year-old body, with the memory of death still fresh. I felt complete, not happy in the bubble-like way Jade seemed to be happy, requiring constant affirmation and attention, but complete in a deeper sense. Whole. Sufficient unto myself. My phone rang around 9. Mother, of course. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message in the dark. "Sweetheart, I know you're angry with us. I know we haven't always seen you the way we should. Your father and I have been talking, and we realise," her voice cracked, "we miss you. We miss having you around. Jade misses you. Please come home tomorrow so we can talk. Please let us try to fix this. I saved the message but didn't call back. They could have their realizations, their guilt, their belated recognition. I didn't need to absolve them. Forgiveness was its own kind of labor, and I'd spent enough years performing emotional work for people who wouldn't reciprocate. Instead, I walked down to the beach in the darkness and stood at the water's edge, letting the waves wash over my bare feet. The ocean was vast and cold and utterly indifferent to human need. It took and gave according to its own rhythms, acknowledging no debt, owing no apologies. I wanted to be like that, moving through the world according to my own nature, not defined by others' inability to see me clearly. I did eventually return home, but on my own terms. I agreed to a family dinner, neutral territory at a restaurant none of us had history with. Mother cried through her apologies. Father looked older, diminished by the realization of what he'd missed. Jade was subdued, perhaps finally understanding that sisterhood required reciprocity. I listened to all of it with compassion, but without capitulation. Yes, I accepted their apologies. Yes, I understood they hadn't meant to hurt me. But no, I wouldn't return to the old patterns. No, I wouldn't sacrifice my boundaries to ease their guilt. I love you all, I said at the end of that dinner. But I love myself too now. And sometimes those loves look different than what you expect. Mother reached across the table for my hand. Can we try to do better? You can try, I said, but I'm not waiting to see if you succeed. I'm just living my life either way. It was the kindest truth I could offer. By my 20th birthday, the distance had calcified into something permanent but not hostile. I'd moved into an apartment near campus, splitting costs with 2 roommates I actually liked. I worked part-time at the library and freelanced as a tutor. I dated briefly, nothing serious, but enough to learn that I could be interesting to someone, valued for my thoughts and presence. Mother still called weekly, conversations that danced around the truth we both understood. I'd stopped performing the daughter role she'd written for me, and she didn't know how to love the person I actually was. But she was trying, in small ways, asking about my work, remembering details I mentioned. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Father sent money occasionally, his way of showing care without requiring emotional presence. I accepted it, without guilt. If that was his love language, so be it. Jade and I spoke rarely, the few conversations cordial but not intimate. She'd grown softer, less certain of her place in the world. Life had introduced her to disappointment, a failed relationship, a graduate program rejection. She was learning what I'd always known, that no one escapes being humbled eventually. I celebrated my 20th birthday with my roommates and a handful of friends I'd collected slowly, carefully. We made dinner together, laughing in the kitchen. Someone burning the garlic bread, someone else fixing it with clever problem solving. After dinner, they brought out a cake, vanilla with fresh strawberries, because they'd listened when I mentioned I liked it. They sang happy birthday, slightly off-key but enthusiastically. I blew out the candles. They gave me small, thoughtful gifts, a book I'd mentioned wanting, a plant for my room, a scarf in colours they said reminded them of me. Later, washing dishes while music played and conversation floated around me, I realised this was what I'd been hungry for all those years. Not extravagance or grand gestures, just being seen, being remembered, being included in the ordinary ways that meant someone was thinking of you. My phone buzzed with messages throughout the evening. Mother sent a long text. Father, a brief but warm one. Jade, a photo of flowers she'd sent to my apartment. They'd arrived earlier, sitting pretty in a vase my roommate had found. The gestures were genuine, and I appreciated them. But they didn't define my day anymore. They were additions, not necessities. 3 years after my rebirth, Jade got engaged. The news came via a family group text. A photo of her hand with a significant diamond, exclamation points multiplying across messages I skimmed but didn't fully absorb. Mother called immediately. You'll be a bridesmaid, of course. Jade specifically wants you in the wedding party. That's kind of her, I said neutrally, but I'll have to check my schedule. Check your... Amelia, this is your sister's wedding. I understand. I still need to check my schedule. The silence on the other end was heavy with unspoken accusations, ungrateful, bitter, holding grudges. But I wasn't holding a grudge. Grudges required active emotional investment. I'd simply moved on. She'll be hurt if you're not involved, Mother tried again. Then she should have called me herself. The wedding planning became a background hum in my life. Updates I received third-hand, expectations I didn't meet, disappointment I didn't absorb. I sent a nice gift from the registry and politely declined the bridesmaid invitation. I'd attend the wedding itself, I said, but I couldn't commit to the showers, the fittings, the endless events that seemed designed to consume everyone's calendar. The week before the wedding, Jade finally called me directly. I don't understand why you hate me, she said without preamble. I was in my apartment making dinner, the phone tucked between shoulder and ear while I chopped vegetables. I don't hate you. Then why won't you be part of my wedding? Because you asked me to fill a role, not to share something meaningful. That's not fair. Probably not, I agreed, but it's honest. She made a frustrated sound. When did you become like this? When I died and came back and realised I could choose differently, I thought. But I said, I've always been like this. You just never noticed. That's not true. Jade. I set down my knife, giving her my full attention. Do you remember my 18th birthday? Silence. The dress fitting, I continued quietly. All day, gone for your hem. Do you remember coming home that night and asking how my day was? That was 4 years ago, she said defensively. Yes, but it was also 19 years of similar days. Hundreds of small moments where I was second and you didn't notice because you were first. I'm not angry about it anymore, but I'm also not going to keep pretending it didn't matter. So you're punishing me. No, I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She was crying now, soft sounds I could hear through the phone. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to soften the truth, to make her feel better. The old Amelia would have. But I'd learned that you can't heal someone else's guilt without reopening your own wounds. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I never saw it. I believe you, I said gently. But I've moved past needing your sorry. I hope the wedding is beautiful. I hope you're happy. I really do. Will you come? To the wedding? Yes, I'll be there. Thank you. She paused. I do love you, you know, even if I did a bad job of showing it. I know. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long moment, feeling the complicated tangle of emotions that came with being seen too late. Her apology was real. Her regret was real. But they couldn't rewrite history, couldn't give me back those years of feeling invisible. And that was okay. I'd learned to carry both truths. I could acknowledge her love and still maintain the boundaries that kept me whole. The wedding was beautiful in the expensive, carefully orchestrated way these things were. I sat in the middle section, not family close, but not distant, exactly where I wanted to be. I watched Jade walk down the aisle in her perfect dress, watched her exchange vows with a man who looked at her like she hung the moon. Mother cried, Father beamed, the reception sparkled with champagne and speeches about love and forever. I danced when invited, chatted with relatives I barely knew, and left early without explanation or guilt. On the drive home, I stopped at a beach overlook and watched the sun set over the ocean. My phone buzzed with a text from Mother. Wish you'd stayed longer. It meant so much to Jade that you came. I typed back, I was happy to be there. Wishing her all the best. Polite, kind, boundaried. I sat there as the sky faded from gold to pink to purple, thinking about the girl I'd been at 18, desperate for crumbs of attention. That girl had died in darkness, heart slowing, believing she didn't matter enough to save. But I'd learned something in the years since. You save yourself, not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through small daily choices to honour your own needs, through boundaries maintained gently but firmly, through building a life that reflects your values rather than others' expectations. I no longer celebrated birthdays alone out of neglect. I celebrated them alone, or with people I chose, because I'd learned that solitude was better than performing for an audience that wouldn't applaud. The moon rose over the ocean, a silver crescent like the pendant I'd bought myself that first rebirth birthday. I touched it now where it hung at my throat, a reminder of the day I'd chosen myself. In the old timeline, I'd have spent tonight at the wedding reception until the bitter end, helping clean up, making myself useful, hoping someone would notice and appreciate my effort. I'd have gone home exhausted and invisible, having given everything and received nothing. But in this timeline, I was here, at peace with the ocean and the sunset and my own company. I'd attended the wedding, honoured the relationship as much as it deserved, and left when I was ready. That was the victory. Not revenge or dramatic justice, but this, the quiet power of choosing myself again and again until it became as natural as breathing. I started the car and drove home through the darkness, the road familiar, the way clear. Behind me, the wedding continued without me. Ahead, my apartment waited, small and comfortable and entirely mine. I died once believing I didn't matter. I'd been reborn into the same circumstances, the same family, the same patterns of neglect. But I'd made different choices, not to hurt them, but to honour myself. And in doing so, I discovered something more valuable than their belated recognition. I'd learned that mattering to yourself was enough, that being your own priority wasn't selfish. It was survival, that you could love people from a distance that kept you whole. The revenge I'd been granted through rebirth wasn't dramatic or confrontational. It was simply this: living well, choosing peace over performance, letting them finally see, through my absence more than my presence, what they'd taken for granted. And if they felt regret, if they missed what they'd lost, that was their consequence to carry. I'd spent too many years carrying it for them. Now, I only carried myself, and that burden was light enough to make the journey joyful. By the time I reached home, the moon was high and bright, turning everything silver. I parked, climbed the stairs to my apartment, and let myself into the quiet warmth of the life I'd built. Tomorrow, I'd wake up to another ordinary day. No family drama. No birthday ignored. No dress fittings more important than my existence. Just me, choosing myself, one small decision at a time. And that steady, unremarkable peace was the sweetest revenge of all.